Happy morning, children. Happy back to our session. We were learning from the supplementary chapter 1, A Triumph of Surgery by James Herriot. And the last week we have dealt about the dog being sick, and it was noticed by the doctor on the road when the dog was taken by Mrs. Famprey, its owner, for a walk, and doctor immediately felt that this dog has become really sick, and the owner of the dog did not pay attention to the advice of the doctor, and instead treated the dog as though it was weak and fed plenty. And due to this, the dog has become bulging, looked like a sausage. And now doctor understood it's undergoing a sort of obesity and it really needs some serious treatment, and he was eagerly waiting for her. Very soon she will be calling doctor for the assistance, and that is what actually happened in the story. So doctor came to Mrs. Famprey's house to take the dog. Now in this session we will be reading the lesson, and you will have to answer the following questions. Is the narrator as rich as Tricky's mistress? Question number 2. How does he treat the dog? Question number 3. Why is he here means doctor, tempted to keep Tricky on as a permanent guest? And question number 4, why does Mrs. Famprey think the dog's recovery is a triumph of surgery? So, by learning this lesson, we will be able to answer these 4 questions. So, last time we have learned 3 questions. What were those 3 questions, you remember? What happened to the dog and what sort of a treatment was given to the dog, and was the treatment right one? And ultimately you must have understood the treatment that was given to the dog by Mrs. Famprey was not suitable one. Actually, the treatment made the dog more sicklier than the previous time. So now let us see what sort of a treatment the dog is getting when the dog is with doctor. Now you remember where we have stopped. This is the slide I have stopped. So realizing that what happened when the doctor came to take the dog, the household or the entire family brought all the toys, all the bed, all the belongings of this dog, and asked the doctor to take it to the hospital. Realizing that my car would never hold all the stuff, I started to drive away. Doctor actually got frightened of all those things. The list was there in the last slide, if you remember. The number of beds, bed for morning, bed for afternoon, bed for evening, and number of coats for winter, coats for rainy season and summer, what not he had. And he also had a separate bowl for each meal. And then I am sure she also must have purchased plenty of food and packed for the dog. So doctor felt it's not possible for him to take all those things along with him, and therefore he hesitated even to wait for any longer, and he just started his car. So realizing that my car would never hold all the stuff, I started to drive away. As I moved off, Mrs. Famprey, with a despairing cry, threw an armful of the little coats through the window. So she understood that I am not going to wait. So doctor says she understood, and what did she do? She was despairing. You see the word that they are using for her. Despairing means showing loss of hope. She feels now the dog is going into someone else's hand, and will he be taken care properly? So what she is trying to do, she is trying to assist doctor by providing all his things. So doctor ought to take all those things, but then he is not ready because Doctor understood the sort of treatment that this dog requires and not all the bed, plate and other things. Since she's despairing, she was so feeling low and she was almost in tears through the little quotes that she gathered through the window into the car. I looked in the mirror before I turned the corner of the drive. Everybody was in tears. See here, who is the patient actually? The patient is a dog. Okay? But then what is happening, as though someone, the head of the family or someone very dear person is taken to the hospital. When such thing happens, such incident happens, whole family is in mourning situation. Is it not, children? All fall. Everyone will be very sad because we don't know, we will not be certain the return of the person. When the situation is like that, only we call the ambulance and send the person, right? Here what is happening? The dog is sick. Dog is overfed and because of which it is sickly, and doctor is taking the dog to the hospital. But then the whole family is in tears, feeling so sad. They are just unable to control their emotion. Who is watching all this? Yes, doctor, through his window side glass, he is able to watch all what was the drama that was happening as he moved. You can see the rush with which car is moving on. Out on the road, I glanced down at the pathetic little animal gasping on the seat by my side. I patted the head and Tricky made a brave effort to wag his tail. So now we are going to start. This is the situation. Now the dog is brought away from the home and the dog is with the doctor, and then they are traveling towards the hospital. And now, since the dog is next to him, he just patted to make the dog feel comfortable. What is the name of the dog, children? Tricky. Out on the road, as he was passing, he was driving, he looked at a pathetic little animal. What is the meaning of pathetic, children? Pathetic means miserable, pitiable. So poor little thing. It looks almost really needs to be taken care of. It looked very helpless. So little animal. What was the situation of the dog? See, the tongue is out. You look at the tongue here. Tongue is out. For a normal healthy dog, you don't see the tongue out like this. Okay. Gasping, trying to take a deep breath. Okay. It's doing that on the seat by my side. Who is this my here? The doctor. So the dog was placed next to him and he just looked at it. So pitiful, the dog. He feels he feels kind towards this dog. And then he says, he just pats the dog on its head, the Tricky. And what is the Tricky doing? It's responding very positively. What is the dog doing? It's trying to wag its tail. So that means the dog is trying to find comfort with the doctor. Poor old lad, I said. You haven't a kick in you, but I think I know a cure for you. Children, this particular line, you can be asked, 3 questions can be asked from this one line. Who is this poor old lad? Yes, Tricky. Who is this I said here? Harriet, the doctor, or you can say the narrator, the author. You haven't a kick in you. Who is this both you here? Again, the dog, Tricky. But I think I know a cure for you. So again, one more question. Who is this I? And what is he thinking? That can be also asked. So what is the doctor thinking here? Doctor is confident. Doctor feels he can easily heal this dog. It is not really sick. It is just overfed. And that fat, excessive fat, needs to be brought down. That is the treatment that he needs to give. And that is the reason he was so very confident, and he feels pathetic towards this dog. And he tells the dog, is assuring, he's just feeling deep down himself, you don't worry, my little one, I'm going to cure you and you will be all right. At the surgery, here surgery means the hospital, the veterinary hospital, okay. The household dog searched around me. So now the doctor reached surgery, the place of his hospital, and look at this. What is a surgery? A place where a doctor, a dentist, or anybody who is treating the patients, okay children, the treating. So veterinary doctor has taken the dog to his hospital. The household dog searched, moved suddenly and powerfully forward and upward. The moment the doctor reached the surgery, the hospital, the household dogs, you can understand he must be having a good number of dogs over there, and all the dogs rushed towards him. Why? Because he is a doctor. He is treating them. He is showing some kindness to the dogs. He loves those dogs. So in return, when we love dog loves us back. So these dogs, out of love, rushing towards doctor, and doctor is coming out of the car with a new little dog again. Tricky looked down at the noisy pack with dull eyes, and when put down, lay motionless on the carpet. So the doctor picked the dog, brought out of the car, and he just dropped it on the floor. Now what is the dog? What is the response of the Tricky here? The Tricky has no energy. It was so dull. It was feeling so low, helpless. See here, down at the noisy pack. Noisy pack here means the group of the dogs there which surrounded doctor. Okay, the dogs belonging to doctor or that particular hospital. So all the dogs, the Tricky looked at them, had no energy. So with so dull eyes, dull look it must have given towards these dogs, and then just lying on the carpet because there is no energy absolutely, and it could not move any longer. And remember, this is the reason why Mrs. Famfrey called the doctor. So the doctor went, the dog is being brought here, and then he will start the treatment. Now let's look at the treatment the dog is going to get. The other dogs, what are the response of the dogs now? What did Tricky do? Tricky did not show any interest towards the other dogs that came around the doctor. It was just lying motionless. What is the meaning of motionless? There is no movement at all. Here the other dogs also are there, and what is their response towards this dog? Just look at it. The other dogs, after sniffing, means smelling round him for a few seconds. Who is this him here? The new dog, the Tricky. They looked at him, smelled. The dog's main characteristic, you know, not smell. And then they went around him, and then they felt it's uninteresting object, because the Tricky did not show any interest towards these dogs. So naturally, when we look at someone and that someone is not showing any concern towards you or any interest towards you, definitely, however the person that we are looking at, however important the person may be, however the great that person may be, for us, he or she means an uninteresting object. Same thing happened to this dog also. The dogs felt, since there is no response from Tricky, these felt it's a object which needs to be kept aside and it need not be given